So I love. I think this season of Fargo is a total 100% masterpiece. And you guys, the ensemble, are all fantastic. I have to start with a really silly question.
Sure.
Did you talk to Noah about where Gator came from? Like, is that his real name? Is that a nickname? Like, where did Gator come from?
No, that's not something we talked about actually. It's funny, no. It's like I loved that his name was Gator. It feels like I think he's got a real like I mean Danish Graves, that name is
Yeah,
like genius. That's like a I think a very strong talent of Noah's. So no, we didn't get into the specifics of it, but no, I did like it. I think he's got kind of like a little snake in the grass sort of thing. So I don't know, maybe reptilian, but yeah.
yeah, love that. So obviously, everybody became to know you through Stranger Things, but I'm a huge fan of the film Spree. Um,
Oh,
I
sweet.
I think you are fantastic in that. I think that is a one of the most underrated films to come out in the last 10 years. The way that it understands like internet culture and stream Snapchat culture and all of that and just the
Yeah.
interaction. It's fantastic. Does and of course you're fantastic in Fargo, but does having something like Spree on your resume prepare you for the experience of Fargo when you're moving away from Stranger Things?
Yeah, I think that movie was it was made for nothing
Yeah.
and it was a very tiny little movie, but what I always thought, the script was amazing and Eugene is amazing, the director
Mm.
of that movie. He is the reason why that movie is the way that it is because of his dedication. And I feel something that was so helpful for me as an actor was that it was this relationship that was real 50-50. He had an understanding of the character, I had an understanding of the character, and we both had our own ideas and we met together in the middle. And we did all this rehearsal work together and we had this shared sort of yeah, I don't know, like language that we could use when we were working together because it was so quick and dirty. We didn't have to have these big rehearsal. We could just we were in it. And also the way it was shot with the GoPros was
Mhm.
very interesting and it was like a play. And so that was a real actor forward movie and it was kind of designed to be that way. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to do more stuff like that in the future just because it's really fun to one of the best parts of being an actor is the relationship you get to have with the director. Like that is, you're there. It's the director's medium. They're the person who's making the movie, and you want to serve them as best as possible. And it help if you feel comfortable and you feel great and you're doing good work, it helps them. And so it's kind of this great relationship where you're both really helping each other and you feel like you're making this thing together. So yeah, having that experience did help me for Fargo. But it was I mean, it was very nerve-wracking. I was a fan of the show before, and so kind of hopping into this pre-existing thing that has a very specific tone. And yeah, you just really want to do a good job. And Noah and Rachel Tenner, the casting director, they both really kind of like took a chance, I think, on me for this part because I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, that guy should play this part. I don't know. Um, I don't think a lot of people thought that way. So yeah, they trusted me with it and helped me along, and it ended up being like a really, for me, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Rachel worked on the original. She worked with the Coen brothers on the original Fargo, so
Mhm.
she picked up on some Midwestern vibe in you there.
Yeah, it's actually we have some funny overlap, me and Rachel through Chicago because she worked at a casting agency that, I got some of my earliest jobs out of and I had a teacher, Jane Brody, and she had actually worked with Jane Brody, years and years ago. This is before, we ever knew each other, but it's funny things like that,
Yeah,
life is what?
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you, as I look at the character of Gator, and I kind of and as I imagine like how actors, how you would portray him, how you would approach that character, I keep thinking that there's like a mantra in his mind, and you can tell me if this is anything close to what you did with the character. But in every interaction that you have with John Hamm's Roy Tillman, Sheriff Roy Tillman, I almost feel like Gator has this mantra running through his head that's like He thinks I'm stupid. I need to prove him wrong. He thinks, just constantly, like, he's just he just feels like he constantly has to live up to his father's opinion, or to prove his father's opinion wrong. Is that how you understood that character?
Yeah, there's just a vicious cycle going on where the harder he tries, the worse it gets, and it's been going on for the character's entire life. And it's just because, he's gotten zero love. He's
Mhm.
gotten no encouragement. And so he's always trying to prove that he's worthy and worthwhile of any sort of love, any sort of affection, any sort of gratitude. And I think honestly the scene, it was not in the script, was the scene where Gator's like, I'm a winner, I'm a winner. That was a scene that was, we were on set one day and Noah powered. I mean, this is exactly a great example of him as a the scripts are already amazing, but his ability to really like move and duck and dodge and just like he just added this scene, and I thought that like that's the mantra. I'm a winner. Like trying to convince himself, trying to just convince himself that he's okay and he's good and he's a winner. And yeah, that was very helpful. Obviously, some of the external things obviously were really helpful for me just to get into it, like like lifting more weights and feeling like just like a little kind of like, a little bit puffier in a way, and
Yeah.
my haircut and the vaping and the glasses, just like things like that where the audience can kind of really quickly be like, oh, this kind of guy. And then filling the rest of that stuff in, like what you're talking about, this mantra and this kind of like emotional place that you sort of have to sort of live in. Um, Let that sort of slowly blossom as the show goes on. Um, so yeah, I mean, everybody has a different process, and to be honest with you, I feel like my whole process is different every time and different
Mhm.
with every job. It's not like I have a thing that works every time. It's sort of like you're kind of relearning how to do it every
Yeah.
time. So um it can be stressful, but the thing you got to do is really just kind of like trust in yourself and not be afraid to take risks.
When you talk about the artifacts of the character that help you find him, obviously he's a sheriff's deputy, so there's that costume, there's that outfit, there's that armor and the gun, and that has to carry you forward somewhat. What kind of training did you do? Because I was thinking about this. I'm like, Gator's not great at his job, so do you want to avoid overtraining, right? So you're not like a great deputy.
Zero. I did not do a lot of training at all. I think
There you
he's
go.
horrible at his job. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
absolutely terrible. Yeah, he's all show. He's not good. And he's the type of guy who is, if he was stranded on a desert island, he would die.
Mhm.
He's like, he does not have the skills. All bark, no bite.
I love that. I think it was like I don't remember if it was a preview trailer or like Gator's walking out of the barn and he's doing something with the gum and then he drops it completely. I mean,
Yeah.
that summarizes the entire character right there in just like a
Yeah,
single image.
those were fun. Yeah, and I think that that's what they were trying to do is kind of liquid, kind of get it down to its essence. And I agree with you. It is like that is kind of him.
Yeah.
Just cannot get it together.
No, not at all, and constantly makes bad
Yeah.
choices. In your interactions with John, and in Gator's interactions with Roy as his father, like, how do you think Gator deals with that overt misogyny? I mean, you said he's had no love, right? But how do you feel like Gator deals with that relationship to women?
I just think that's all he knows, I
Yeah.
guess. I think that like the part of that that makes him uncomfortable exists, but that's the part of himself that he's trying to kill, and that's the part that he's been trying to kill of himself forever. So I think it's generally if you're uncomfortable, I don't know. I think he makes him lean even harder into it.
Mhm.
He was given the chance, like that scene with Dot, he's given the chance to kind of change and he chooses not to. And I think that was a really good choice writing wise because, you know, the likelihood that someone like that would abandon everything that they know and everything that they've learned and taught themselves is pretty slim. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's like nature versus nurture. This guy has been trained to be this way.
right.
And, deep down, I think that if he was given a different life and a different opportunity, yeah, he probably could have turned out differently. And I
Mhm.
also I think that was the strength of that puppet scene. And that was something I didn't even have to, I didn't even do that, but it really brought a depth to the character that was, you just see him as this little kid. It's just like,
Mhm.
oh man, this is not his fault, but he cannot get out of this twisted cycle.
Yeah. Talk to me about working with John Hamm in those scenes as father and son in this twisted relationship.
Well, it's funny because, John is obviously not this way.
Right.
So, and he's, well, first of all, he's a great guy. Just he's an actor that I respect. So I kind of, something that I thought was kind of great, especially for the earlier scenes, is we knew each other, but we weren't like super close.
Mhm.
I have to play this man's son, and so that's an intimate relationship. But it's almost as if that kind of played into it because I was nervous, and Gator is nervous, and he's trying to feel out his dad, and so I don't know, it kind of feels like I didn't realize at the time, but I'm like, oh, that's kind of like almost sort of great that it happened that way. Me and John are obviously friends now and buddy buddy, so it's like, but it's kind of cool that like I was able to maybe like have a little bit of that influence. But the thing about John that I really like is like so much of this job is um being relaxed, I think, and
Mhm.
allowing yourself to like don't worry about making mistakes, like you're good. And he is like obviously he's such a seasoned vet. He's worked on so much stuff. Mad Men, the amount of work that he had to do on that show, the amount of lines he had to memorize, the amount of consecutive days, he's in every bit of that show.
Mhm.
And so he's like, he's played 1,000 games. He's like he sees it. So it takes a lot to throw him off, and it's cool to see a guy who's like so consistent like that. So yeah, it was just awesome to like be a fan of somebody and then be able to watch them work. And
Mhm.
um I feel that way with Juno also. Like,
Mhm.
man, she has such power and gravitas that she brought to the role and like a care for her other actors. And then with Sam, I got to watch Sam and work with him so closely, and he has a totally different process and was uh, you know, we spent so much time like offset together and got to like really hear about his experiences and also kind of his angle and what he views the job as. So kind of being sort of like the young buck and coming into this show with all these people, it was like, yeah, it was just like just a very cool opportunity that like, it was difficult while we were doing it, but I look back and I'm like, man, that was so crazy, so cool.
What do you take away from the experience as an actor? Like what did you learn from it?
I think just to like take risks, just take big risks, and
Mhm.
early on, like just don't be afraid of failing. Be prepared enough, obviously, that you're and trust that you're prepared enough. You know what I mean? Because you can just stress and stress and stress and stress and kill something. You can iron it flat, and then you're like, if you're too worried about it that way, you're not gonna leave room for spontaneity and for like little
Right.
bits of things to happen on set. And those are the scenes that are lifted off the page and
Mhm.
turn out to be kind of the most exciting scenes to watch, are the things that have those little elements of surprise, or maybe the scene didn't turn out the way that you wanted it, or just being open and is really important. So try to, yeah, bring that to things moving forward. Yeah, I mean, even now, I feel like my process for shooting on Stranger Things, we're doing this new season, it does feel like a little different. And yeah, it's cool that you can kind of like take little things from jobs and use them moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a different experience too, working on something that is not the Stranger Things isn't character driven, but it does have that VFX supporting aspect to it. But
Of course.
Fargo is, is all about the characters. It doesn't have aliens and things from other dimension, interacting in the story. Maybe Monk, but
Yeah.
it's a exciting difference in experience, I would say.
Yeah, 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 it is. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like the identity of Stranger Things really is the camera, you know.
Hmm.
The way that those guys move the camera and edit that show is the identity of the show.
Hmm.
And that's amazing. So it is kind of cool to like work on something. Every director is different. And I think kind of moving forward in like my own career, that's really what I'm excited about is the opportunity to work with different directors who have a different point of view and do things differently. And yeah, that's really exciting.
Toward the end of the show, or the season, Gator has that unfortunate accident where has a struggle with the older lady that is Monk's landlady, essentially, where Monk's living in her house, and he knocks her over and inadvertently causes her death. Monk comes back and exacts revenge by removing the eyes. And now Gator has to wander the rest of the season blindfolded and lost in this, kind of just this territory. Talk to me about filming all of that sequence and the blindfolded moments. Like, how was that challenging for you as an actor?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of like rely on things like that in a way. It just sort of informs the work. It's like
Mhm.
it's not, you don't have to pretend. You just are actually blind because you're totally wrapped up. And for a lot of that, it's great to have that, and for Gator, it's like this whole show, he's like one of those ice cream cones that has a, frozen dip top. He's got this shellacked hair and this
Mhm.
stuff. And it's like in that moment, his shell is ripped off and he's just like a turtle with no shell for the rest of
Mhm.
the show. And it's so fun to be able to play that and to allow yourself to do that. And then also you're disconnected from the fact that you're like making something because you are blind. So there'd be some times where, you know, you don't know where the camera is, you
And
know?
that's okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like too aware. You're like, oh, okay, the camera's over there. Like it's kind of close, you know? It like takes some unlearning for that stuff. So this was like, what a cool experience, I
Mhm.
guess. What just like a fun experience and how great for the character and for yeah, I really like that. To be honest with you, I could have done more blindfolded. Like I loved being able to just like, you know, lean into the how pathetic he has become. And I like that for the character. It's all about he was this way and he made these mistakes in his life and then he pays the debt. It's a
Mhm.
show about debt. What does a father owe a son? What does a mother owe a daughter? Spiritual debt for Monk or, actual debt, physical debt, what do we owe society? And so he pays his debt and now it's like he's been sent off into the abyss. It's kind of up to him now. It's a fresh start, you know. He lost something, but maybe he's also gained something as well.
Right.
Good ending
So,
for him.
sorry.
It's just a good ending for that character. I don't think it would have, it's like the right ending.
It is. And then you do end on that note where Gator kind of reconciles with Dot in
Hmm.
that last episode. Do you think it sticks for him? Do you think he has separated from his father now? Do you think he changes?
I could see it a couple different ways, I think, but I do think there's no going back.
Hmm.
No going back to the way that he was. How it could end up for him, I don't know. But there's no going. I don't think he'd be returning to the way that he was. Yeah.
It feels like he's going to perpetually be out there on those fields, stumbling around, trying to find his way.
Yeah, I think so. I guess like everything that he thought his identity was based on has been stripped.
Hmm.
So he's just like he's like a 12-year-old, a child. So
Yeah.
he has to rebuild himself completely in prison,
Well,
unfortunately.
yeah, there you go. In prison. Well, Joe, I thank you very much for the time. This was a great conversation, and
Thank you.
um, can't wait to see what you're doing in Stranger Things.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, I can't wait to
Excited.
see the show. I hope it's cool.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. You take
Cool.
care.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.